Wakanda mobilized 100,000 fighters to form a phalanx. This number has already pulled out the entire Wakanda fighters, which can be said to be exhausted. 5 tribes are all mobilized to guard the shield. Wakanda energy is output to the extreme, waiting for the arrival of the enemy. Martin hands behind, such as walking Shenting walk slowly leisurely walk before protective cover, that quiet expressions and casual look, as if going on a tour of the game. Behind him, millions of troops gathered one after another, staring fiercely at the front, showing the terrifying giant muzzle and sword, directly gathering outside the energy shield. This thing is good, although it is not strong enough, it is also relatively rare. Martin walked to the protective cover, ignored the 100,000 wild men in ancient costumes, raised his hand and touched the protective cover. He's looking for death. It's really stupid, this protective cover and a defense system that is not passive defense, but a kind of energy with its own annihilation attribute. The Wakanda's eyes fixed on Martin, with anticipation and chill in his eyes. The energy source of this shield is the inexhaustible vibranium mine underground. This kind of defense strength can be imagined, how terrible it should be, but this man actually dared to touch it with his bare hands? They almost saw Martin being burned to ashes by the energy on the shield. But the next moment, everyone's face changed, showing shock and disbelief. They saw that after Martin touched the protective cover, although he was eroded by the energy of the protective cover, he appeared to be safe. How did he do it? An ability like him, it stands to reason that he should be very fragile. Why can he block the backlash of the protective cover? Wakanda's executives looked shocked, and at the same time a little absurdity and panic rose in his heart. According to the plan given by Su Rui, Martin was originally the Legion's biggest weakness. Just like Professor X, his mental strength was terribly powerful, but his body was extremely fragile, and he would die if he cut his throat with a knife. But now it seems, not only is super ability terrifying, even he himself is actually terrifyingly powerful. The power is not bad. Martin retracted his hand, thoughtful. He definitely wouldn't care about the erosion of this protective cover, and the fire source integrated into his body would explode this shit protective cover in all directions. He raised his arm and swayed his fingers. Millions of shapeshifting King Kong received the order and immediately began to gather cannon fodder against the protective cover. Various energy weapons and thermal weapons were vented wildly, and the aftermath of the horrible explosion spread madly. But it was blocked by this protective cover. It is a waste of the vibranium mine to give this group of wild men such a use. Martin swept his eyes and sighed with emotion. Megatron, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and I'll leave it to you here. As for the bottom line of the war, there is no bottom line, kill them all, I don't want to see it in this precious place. A savage, all killed, and the corpses burned. Maybe this group of filthy creatures have something unclean on them. You know, I am a little bit clean. Martin took a step back, said casually to Megatron, and walked away leisurely, looking for a nice place to watch. Shape-shifting King Kong, who grinds coffee beans, ran over and turned it into a coffee machine. On the side, there are several kinds of machines with complete functions, some become mechanical chairs, some become electric parasols and so on. This posture, as if he was not here to fight, but to bathe his vision and enjoy a visual feast. The shape-shifting King Kong army finally began to attack, each with a grim complexion, and under the order of Megatron, they began to rush towards the protective cover frantically. I don't need waste. Whoever can rush through the protective shield alive is truly a fighter under Megatron. The Decepticon I am about to form has a place for him. Megatron looked cruel. He was using this method to cruelly remove waste. It doesn't matter if your background is not enough, it doesn't matter if the body is too bad, as long as you can survive this cruel screening, at least impeccable in will and awareness. Megatron is happy to throw them into the breeding warehouse for these inborn inadequate shapeshifting diamonds, to reshape their CNA genes and give them the opportunity to become orthodox shapeshifting King Kong. Countless shapeshifting diamonds rushed to the protective cover without fear of death, tearing frantically, opening it a little bit, and then rushed over. Many of the shapeshifting diamonds were directly battered into liquid by the protective cover, and it was better that the whole body was half passed through the protective cover. Half of it did not pass through, and as a result, its own material could not support it, and it was cut off by the protective cover on the spot. No one backed away. Millions of troops came one after another, even crazily folded and piled up, one after another like high-rise buildings, frantically tearing the protective shield. They are committing suicide. The warriors of Wakanda were a little restless, and there was a trace of fear and unconcealed admiration on everyone's face. It is true that these shape-shifting King Kongs were so crazy and decisive that the primitive barbaric spirit prevailed, and the brave and relentless Wakanda people were greatly shocked physically and mentally, and their little heart was vented fiercely. It's too late, the protective cover was torn apart. King T'Chaka and Prince T'Challa looked helpless, watching the shape-shifting King Kong who rushed through the protective shield and opened fire on them after a long time. They looked decisive, and finally gave the final order. Wakanda hail. Starting. Martin lay down comfortably, surrounded by shape-shifting diamonds. He looked up and saw the countless shape-shifting King Kong rushing into the protective cover, directly starting to wash the ground with long-range firepower, and at the same time charging forward like a vast Wang Yang. It's a cruel scene. Dr. Banner directly picked up a blindfold and buttoned it on his face, completely afraid to look at it. It was too cruel, it was a massacre. Compared with the power of the shape-shifting King Kong, the 100,000 Wakanda fighters are like a group of primitive people at a loss. Holding a spear in his hand, wearing a robe, and painting on his face. Attack! Attack! King T'Chaka roared fiercely, while these 100,000 warriors used their vibranium clothes to create a barrier to resist the fierce artillery fire of the shape-shifting King Kong. They fired powerful energy beams with their spears. At the same time, the entire Wakanda also moved. Powerful muzzles spurted out of many towering buildings, directly firing out energy cannons and bombarding the shape-shifting King Kong army. Every shelling can take away a lot of shape-shifting diamonds. But after all, it's not very useful, and it still can't stop these shape-shifting diamond madness. Hercules, fit. Let them see how powerful the demolition troops are. The 6 ground-digging tigers began to assemble quickly, climbing each other, and becoming a big man with a height of 18 meters. The 6 of them were originally a demolition unit belonging to the Decepticon Legion, but they were professional engineers, who specialized in dirty work and were indispensable at the same time. Guys, follow my instructions. Let's fire a daily rifle at the protective cover, make a gap, and then rush in without paying attention to the gap. The crane in charge of the head naturally issued an order, requiring the other 5 body parts to listen to him. Good idea, kill them with our most powerful weapon. HMPH, I thought of this tactic a long time ago, but you preempted it to say it. The other 5 body parts did nothing, and murmured to each other, only to see Hercules directly took out a shockingly large gun and pointed it straight ahead. A rifle can be used every day. This is the strongest weapon that Hercules has, and it can hit a high temperature of 10,000 degrees Celsius. Don't think 10,000 degrees Celsius doesn't seem to be great. In fact, forging the hardest metal in the universe, adamantium alloy, it only takes 1,500 degrees Celsius to melt in shape, and the core temperature of the planet Earth is only 4,000 to 6,000 Celsius. This shot was shot, and the terrible high temperature of 10,000 degrees, no one dared to say that it could be resisted directly, and only level sub-godfather could have such a positive resistance. Boom. A terrible hole was punched out. Hercules was immediately excited, and screamed and rushed in. His huge and indestructible body can cause the earth to tremble with every step. You can step on it with a single foot. Countless Wakanda fighters. Wherever he went, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and many Wakanda people were trampled directly into mud, and the scene was extremely bloody. Hercules charged with a bombardment of countless energy bombardments, and rushed, and the shock it brought to the Wakanda people was unspeakable. How do we defeat this steel monster? He is too powerful, even our strongest energy cannon can only leave a depression on him. Many Wakanda people panicked with fear on their faces, and huge amounts of shadows enveloped them. A vigorous figure suddenly rushed out, and King T'Chaka directly put on the Black Panther battlesuit. His posture was vigorous. Seeing this scene, many Wakanda people's eyes lit up, and their mouths made ridiculous whining noises, full of primitiveness and ignorance. Hercules made 6 frantic sounds, grabbed Black Panther directly in his hand, and was about to squeeze it to death. But the vibranium battlesuit immediately counteracted this kind of damage. Vibranium has its limits too. You hold him, I'll give him a shot. The other arm yelled, picked up the Rhinung rifle, aimed at T'Chaka, and pulled the trigger. Boom. The terrifying heat melted the vibranium armor on the spot, and T'Chaka's entire head was turned into blood, and the upper half of his body was gone on the spot. He died without saying a word. Father, you invaders. T'Challa's eyes were red and he looked crazy, but the chief guard hugged him tightly, tears streaming down his eyes. From now on, you are the king. Run away, your majesty. As long as you are alive, there will be hope of revenge. T'Challa buzzed in his mind. and turned to look subconsciously, only to see that the 100,000 legion he was proud of was being chased by the endless shapeshifting King Kong. The metal faces showed the cruelty and playfulness of cats and mice, sometimes firing, sometimes pinching the Wakanda to death with their fists. This was a total slaughter, and there was no plan to accept captives at all. Especially when Megatron entered the arena, a terrifying attack from a hand cannon bombarded and killed hundreds of Wakanda fighters who were not afraid of death. The general situation was gone. Wakanda, it was going to perish. Your Majesty, we still have hope, and I still have God's sheltering. Let's go to the secret land of Wakanda to seek the protection of the leopard god. The head of the bodyguard, Oriole, with red eyes, forcibly dragged T'Challa away, and directly abandoned the citizens who had collapsed in formation and were completely exposed to the arbitrary slaughter of powerful enemies. The moment T'Challa ran away tearfully, Martin drank the coffee in his cup and stood up directly. Well, finally can't help but go to the backstage. Martin stroked his chin and smiled. As for the bloody slaughter ahead, to be honest, he just watched it for a while before he lost interest in watching it. The moment the old King T'Chaka was shot to death by the Hercules, he could announce his report. One paragraph. What's left is a large number of shapeshifting kings chasing and killing the defeated generals, as well as capturing Wakanda City, killing all the citizens there, and then continuing to divide the 5 tribes and destroy the 5 tribes. Regardless of men and women, old and young, it is only right to kill all of them, to completely wipe out these black and brutal savages from this world. All the province knows is that riding a rhino and screaming will only tarnish the precious vibranium mine. Vibranium is such a good thing, I really don't know how it hits here. Martin sighed with emotion. Millions of years ago, a meteorite from the sky struck the Earth. No one knows where this meteorite came from. After it hit the African continent, it brought the Earth a precious treasure from the entire universe. Yes, it is vibranium. This meteorite is made of vibranium, and a large amount of vibranium ore is gathered together, which would have released a peculiar radiation, turning the surrounding area into something containing vibranium elements, thereby expanding the scale and reserves of vibranium ore. For example, the purple vibranium plant unique to Wakanda in China has undergone abnormal changes after absorbing vibranium radiation all the year round. Martin issued a command to all shapeshifting King Kong, and this command was passed directly to the mind of every shapeshifting King Kong through the fire source. Kill them all. Martin himself, with Dr. Banner, got directly into his beetle and chased T'Challa all the way into the battlefield. Seeing Martin stepping into the battlefield, there are many Wakanda fighters who plan to fight for the last time. They spurted blood in their mouths and their eyes were red. The cruel reality of the slaughter of their indisputable homeland has long accumulated too much grief and anger. Anger. Why, you are so powerful, but you come to invade us. We haven't offended you at all. A soldier roared angrily, holding a vibranium gun and pulling the trigger directly at Martin.
But Martin didn't even look at him. The vibranium gun was instantly stuck. When the soldier looked down in confusion, he found that the weapon he was holding in his hand turned into one at some point. The small shapeshifting King Kong was looking at him with a red light in his eyes.
Boom. The soldier's head was exploded with a shot from his own weapon. It turns out that this man has been playing with us all the time. He didn't take our resistance to heart at all. Seeing that his vibranium weapons were instantly activated, the last thought and bitterness of this soldier remained for a long time. It turns out that this cruel act of extinction is more of a game that still makes sense. It's really ironic. Secret realm of Wakanda. T'Challa knelt directly with a bang, raised her hands, and looked up at the sky. Great leopard god, your humble people beseech you to come and send the invading demons into hell. T'Challa took out the knife and slashed fiercely in his chest. The orthodox royal blood flowed out and fell to the ground, finally drew a peculiar symbol on the spot. Amidst the darkness, an incomparably powerful will descends. This will is extremely vague, and T'Challa feels more intimate. T'Challa, I have heard your request. A voice rang in T'Challa's mind, and a large number of light spots gathered and turned into a blurred figure. Leopard God Buster. The god who guards Wakanda for generations. Every king who has just taken office must have a dialogue with the leopard god according to the rules, and ask for the protection and approval of the leopard god.
The enemy from the outside world is too powerful. It is far from Wakanda's ability to match. The vibranium mine is the root cause of Wakanda's extinction crisis.
The leopard god spoke slowly. His gaze had already looked into the distance, watching the war machine frantically slaughtering civilians, screaming one after another. The whole king was crying, countless souls wandering around, no place to live. Seeing this tragic scene, his face was moved and was irritated. This is a massacre, and even an extinction. His virtue is not worthy of his strength. The leopard god uttered an angry low roar, and in an instant, a gust of wind suddenly blew up, showing his miraculousness. T'Challa was even more excited, kowtow again and again, hoping that the leopard god could save Wakanda. At this moment, a yellow beetle drove up slowly, and with the sound of the brakes, Martin casually jumped out of the car, and Banner followed closely. I noticed the enormous spiritual power all the way, and it seems that you are the god who guards Wakanda. Martin smiled, as if beckoning roar to an old friend he hadn't seen for many years, with a heartfelt enthusiasm in his behavior. Leopard god Buster, I want your life. Martin's eyes were sparkling. He looked at the prompt in his mind, showing longing. Dip. Discover the soul of the Guardian, get this soul, you can activate the Autobot camp, and unlock the leader of Autobot Optimus Prime at the same time. Martin's greed for the vibranium mine has always spared no effort to hide it. For this reason, he did not hesitate to pull up the army and clearly declared to the world, don't mess with me, or you will be killed. The destruction of the strongest fleet on the surface was a sacrifice, signaled by the detonation of a nuclear bomb, together with countless corpses, established Martin's iron-blooded and strong posture. But now, except for the vibranium mine, he didn't expect to be surprised. I thought it would be a few more years before I could find a way to unlock the Autobot camp. I didn't expect to find a way to unlock it so soon. People of Wakanda, I admire your generosity. Martin put a hand on his chest, bowed deeply, and said gratefully, please don't worry, I originally planned to kill all of you and burn all the corpses, but now I plan to pay a little bit more for you collect all the ashes and throw them into the sea. Follow your gods to wander around the world. T'Challa was irritated. The captain of the bodyguard Ori even raised his spear directly and shot Martin at it. But Dr. Banner on the side suddenly roared, and suddenly became Hulk blocking Martin's body, taking the shot down. Martin glanced at Hulk in amazement, but didn't say much, but chuckled in a low voice, go and die. The wind blows. The leopard god Buster finally made his move. The sky gleamed, as if to arouse the majestic power of nature. With the terrifying spiritual power, Roar rushed towards Martin. But Martin looked dissatisfied. Actually, I have never fought with the gods, let alone witnessed the demeanor of the gods, but at least I know one thing, you, the so-called god, is a parallel import. Martin laughed blankly. As soon as he saw the leopard god, he knew that this ghost is not the kind of god that ordinary people understand at all, but a kind of spirit that transcends the shackles of the body. To be more precise, it is a kind of faith and will, the so-called god. According to the relevant memories of previous lives, this leopard god will be spiritually connected with each generation of kings and grant him the authority to rule Wakanda. But now it seems that this so-called leopard god is basically the gathering of the soul and spirit of King Wakanda after the death of generations. After a long time, he has become stronger with the passage of time. Originally, he would continue to exist and become stronger until the day when the earth collapsed, but it was a pity that he met Martin, a greedy guy. Today I am going to slaughter the gods and kill you, this nondescript ghost. Martin looked indifferent and slapped Hulk aside, who had not figured out his situation. The fire source in his body immediately exploded with powerful life energy and spiritual energy, suddenly raising Martin's life level to a terrifying level. What he is most afraid of is the so-called god like Buster. The combination of mere spirit, will and faith, with the source of fire in his hands, is really nothing to fear. Humanity, you have committed a terrible crime against Wakanda, and what awaits you is an act of atonement for hundreds of millions of years. The citizens who died in the war are crying at you. The leopard god sensed the skyrocketing of Martin's life level, and his heart shook. The body composed of the light spots shook for a moment, and he spoke in a low voice. I never cared about Deadman's cries. Martin rushed to the opponent directly, and put on the magnetic glove, directly controlled the powerful magnetic field to interfere with the leopard god. The fire source in his body burst out with terrible power, and rushed at the leopard god. The earth trembled for a while, and a terrifying spiritual ocean suddenly burst out, swept everything, and finally formed a terrible spiritual storm on this African continent. Who are you, and why can you have such power? The leopard god Buster roared loudly, his voice resounded across the sky, with deep shock. He was originally good at being on the mental and spiritual side. This was his domain, but he didn't expect that the guy in front of him was even stronger. The leopard god turned into countless light spots and dissipated in place, and went straight to Hulk, intending to possess the body of the monster with the strongest growth potential. He wanted to directly control Hulk's body to fight Martin. Madness. Martin sneered when he saw this scene. With this kind of stuff, if Hulk can possessing others' body, it is not Hulk originally insulting, but the terrifying and ruthless character standing behind Hulk.
The leopard god didn't know the inside story. He just did what he thought was the most correct action at the moment. He needed a strong body to carry his will. It was difficult to fight Martin by relying solely on the strength of his heart.
When I take the body of this big guy, it will be your death date. The leopard god's face was ferocious, and one head plunged into Hulk's body. There was nothing in the beginning, but the next moment, he saw a group of green light, from which a terrible violent light burst out. A pair of eyes immediately crossed the endless time and space, crossed the endless universe and the partitions of countless different dimensions, and landed directly on this Earth in this universe. As the eyes were slowly opened, a strong sense of destruction and suffocation flooded with the leopard god. Heart. With just a glance, his spirit almost broke down. Where's the bug? This voice whispered in such a low voice, from the light group that seemed to span countless multi-universes. A random gaze immediately came, and in just an instant, it shattered the leopard god. The leopard god screamed, and there was a deep horror in his eyes, wailing and fleeing madly. Only the last bit of spirit escaped, and the strength he had accumulated after tens of thousands of years was completely lost. What's more terrifying is that he doesn't even know who the opponent is or what the origin is. Just a glance almost killed him. When the leopard god screamed and screamed all the way to escape, it was Martin, who had already sneered and contemptuously, to greet him. Buster, die. Martin opened his palm to Buster, killing intent. As we all know, in the Marvel system, the top one is above all things, one above all, OAA. And the one who stands on the absolute opposite of OAA is under all things born in hell, one below all, which is Oba. Although this Oba, no matter in terms of compulsion, strength, or acting style, it can't even compare to 1/10 of OAA, no matter how you look at it, apart from the name and origin, it is a total parallel importer. But no matter how incompetent this guy is, it is relative to OAA. For ordinary multi-universe gods, it is a monster like a nightmare. And Oba, this monster, has long tried to get out of the bottom abyss of hell, and wants to truly set foot in the category of multi-universe. For this reason, he has tried many plans and finally crafted a portal, through which he wants to get around some things that bound him in the open mind, and then can truly enter the multi-universe. That's right, this portal is Hulk. The Hulk is a gate, a coordinate, and even a physical body that provides a foothold for him to create a gate, a coordinate, and a shell that provides a foothold for him. Hulk is the body that Oba looks after. Martin, who knew this deeply, was not surprised by his tragic end when he saw the Panther God unconsciously going to take possession of Hulk's body directly. You know, the leopard god's behavior is not mind control, it is essentially a possessing other's body, which is simply touching the inverse scales of Oba. This is looking for death. Stupid god. Martin gave a sneer, hitting the wounded leopard with a painful assassin. With a loud bang, Martin, with his own terrifying life and spirit, grabbed the shocked and desperate Panther god's spirit body on the spot, swallowing all the traces of aura from his body. He didn't show a satisfied smile until there was a light curtain of information in his mind. Do not. T'Challa and Oriel rushed over frantically, their eyes were red. They would never allow the gods they worshipped to be killed by Martin in this way, even if they didn't even know what happened. Martin glanced at him, laughed low, his figure suddenly flashed, avoiding the attack of the two men, directly stretched out his two arms, and grabbed the two guys by their necks.
Farewell, future superhero and Avengers leaders, you will never have that glorious day, and go to death with your loyal chief guard.
Click it. Martin squeezed the necks of two people with a light effort. But at this time, the ocean suddenly boiled, and a huge amounts of tsunami came violently, with huge waves and faint magic mixed in it. Martin's eyes flashed, without any hesitation, and he became even more violent. Not only did he crush the two people's necks, but also exploded their heads, annihilated their bodies, and cut off the possibility of resurrection. When will a group of salted fish in Atlantis dare to join the battle on the land? Do you want to exterminate like the Wakanda? Martin sneered, either go back now, or I will take you to Atlanta with the Endless Legion. Tis kills everything up and down, get out. His voice was magnificent, and with the blessing of huge life and spiritual energy, the huge and majestic voice spread over half of the earth, and countless people looked up with consternation and confusion. Atlantis. This term is so sensitive that it has only existed in legends for the past few thousand years. Is there really Atlantis in this world? In the seabed, the entire huge seabed kingdom clearly heard this overbearing and cruel voice. Even if it was far away, it clearly felt a strong bloodthirsty taste. This is already similar to a declaration of war. Especially in the huge waves that came, there was a kind of anger and jealousy, but in the face of Martin, who sneered repeatedly, he finally retreated, and the magic flashing inside also dissipated. The Atlantean, probably Aquaman Namor, the real first superhero, the husband of Storm in X-Men, has maintained a close relationship with Wakanda all the year round. Martin glanced coldly at the receding waves. If you go to the bottom of the sea and go to full-scale war with the ubiquitous Atlantis, I am afraid it will be very difficult. His shape-shifting King Kong Legion is too disadvantaged. Even if all the machines of Atlantis are activated on the spot, the number is limited, and a group of people headed by Aquaman Namor know how to use magic. After the Wakanda was slaughtered and the endless vibranium mine was captured, the construction of the Earth base was the first priority, and everything else had to be in the back row. Furthermore, Tony has become Iron Man, Hulk has fought on Broadway, the Golden Prince of Asgard is about to come to Earth, the god Odin. Martin thought for a moment, raised his head and glanced into the distance, then turned his head to look at Hulk, who was standing still on the spot, the powerful aura gradually dissipating on his body but still looking haunted. Start to activate Autobot, I want to summon Optimus Prime. In the ruins of Wakanda Kingdom, countless shape-shifting King Kong roar whizzed past, turning this ancient and advanced world into a cruel Shira field, full of screams and corpses. Megatron held Su Rui in his hand and threw it in front of Martin. The intelligence of this guy, even my scanning system can't detect the upper limit, Megatron said. Martin just glanced at him and looked at Su Rui's hateful gaze. He suddenly laughed and raised his hand to kill this genius who was supposed to shine in the future. Also twisted his neck. Drag it out and burn it. Martin shook his head, his attention averted immediately. Begin to summon Optimus Prime. With a light curtain shining out of Martin's eyes, Optimus Prime's figure was immediately constructed little by little. This guy is... Megatron Electronics rolled his eyes, just took a look, and immediately met someone in the database, and immediately showed instinctive disgust. Optimus Prime. Open black lens bracket Optimus Prime close black lens bracket open black lens bracket Autobot Army. Leader, close black lens bracket. Character. Affinity, trust plus 30%, height, meters. Energy. 9.5 million, open black lens bracket body. Healthy close black lens bracket, strength, level 4. Famous saying, Autobots, retreat, close black lens bracket, evaluation. The leader of the Autobot army has an extremely tenacious will, and can always lead his subordinates to find a way out in adversity. Close black lens bracket. Huh, it turned out to be this guy. Megatron snorted coldly, folded his hands on his chest, and looked at Optimus Prime with a cold face. Optimus Prime was called out, and the blue electronic eyes quickly scanned the surrounding environment, and finally focused on Martin, who was slightly lowered. Supreme Creator, I am willing to obey your orders faithfully. Optimus Prime has a solemn expression. Compared to Megatron, who likes to sneer, he is an unsmiling King Kong, similar to an ascetic monk in some respects. Very well, Optimus Prime. From now on, I need your power to form the Autobots. The first step we need to do is to gain a foothold on the Earth. When the time is right, we will build a space battleship and leave directly. Here. Martin looked at Optimus Prime. Although he was a lot shorter than Megatron in physique and did not seem so powerful, he had a natural affinity that Megatron couldn't match. You two legions are just the beginning. In the future, there will also be the Quintasha Legion, the Mechanical Insect Legion, the Giant Vicious Legion, etc. If you want to grow Cybertron, all kinds of talents are indispensable. Martin spoke with high spirits. Optimus Prime nodded heavily, glanced away, and frowned subconsciously when he saw Su Rui's corpse on the side. Megatron sneered. Take away your hypocrisy. We can't let them surrender the benefits by relying on kindness. If we want to gain, we must let the other party lose something. I don't agree with your point of view, but I know what to do. Optimus Prime and Megatron looked at each other and said solemnly. That's good, I'm really worried. When will your ridiculous Madonna's heart suddenly break out again, causing all the plans to collapse? Megatron said sarcastically, and left as soon as he mentioned Su Rui. He must follow Martin's order to burn Su Rui to ashes. Optimus Prime, your task is to pull up a force to dig the vibranium mine as soon as possible, and build our own base on the vibranium mine. In this regard, the Civil King Kong is better at it. You can also compete with the Decepticons. The demolition forces cooperate. Anyway, it's up to you.
Then, all the vibranium mines of the Wakanda people will belong to me from now on. These minerals will all be Cybertron's property, my property. Even if I dig 3 feet in the ground, I will never let go of a vibranium element.
Martin pointed to his head. My ability can distinguish all the microscopic particles here and everything related to vibranium. From now on they are the property of our planet. Even a stone must be squeezed out of 2 tails of oil. There was determination in his voice, without the boldness of a strong man, got up, and after crashing into a building, landed at the entrance of the nearest mine. He picked up some stones on the ground casually, checked it, and nodded in satisfaction. This stone also contains a little vibranium element, which has been eroded and assimilated by the radiation of the vibranium mine over the long years. The entire Wakanda contains a little vibranium element more or less, including the peculiar surrounding scenery and the purple plants that are mutated by the radioactive energy of the vibranium mine. These are all his. Even if the land is scraped, there must be no grass left. Here is the best gift for the planet Cybertron in the future. For a metal planet, nothing is more inexhaustible than these inexhaustible vibranium mines. More precious. Martin himself raised his foot to the entrance of the underground vibranium mine, walked straight in, and quickly went underground. He closed his eyes, the power of the fire source spread out quickly. Now, let me take a closer look at the reserves of this vibranium mine. This terrifying reserve. According to his perception, the underground is full of purple minerals, soil and plants dyed purple. And every moment, this purple is spreading outwards, transforming more ordinary soil into a substance similar to vibranium mine. Although the process is slow, it actually happens. When I build Cybertron in the future, the first thing is to move the vibranium mine over and build the capital on the vibranium mine. Dip. Congratulations to the host for establishing the first base, rewarding the host for cultivating warehouse technology, and giving the host a chance to draw a prize for the top 10 artifacts. Dip. Congratulations to the host for taking the first step in the construction of Cybertron, and opening the Cybertron Technology Tree Column Lottery area, giving a chance to draw a prize. Dip. Congratulations to the host's reputation spread throughout Midgard, and reward the entire region with a chance to draw a lottery. A series of beeps sounded in his mind, and Martin looked at the light curtain in his mind with surprise on his face. Sure enough, as I guessed, once the base is established, it is of great significance. Apart from other things, just a cultivation warehouse can continuously produce shape-shifting diamonds in accordance with the orthodox model. The value of this to the future is inestimable. Martin took a deep breath, suppressed the restlessness in his heart. His face showed solemnity and seriousness, and at the same time he walked quickly into the palace that belonged to the Wakanda, and began to seriously wash his hands. The lottery draw is all about the face, so you really have to take it seriously. If you can't say it, you'll just turn your face back. Then, he looked at the phantom shadows that kept flashing in the light curtain, and he didn't see much at first, but the more he looked, the redder his eyes became. There are too many babies, I want them all. Martin stared at blood-red eyes, and roar sucked quickly. He saw the star sword, saw the magic ball, saw the giant ferocious, even he was still in a glimpse, saw the 13 apostles. The 13 apostles, even if you think about it with your toes, each of these 13 bosses is a ruthless character starting from the level single universe. If you can draw a master and apprentice, at least it will be stable in a single universe. Whoever dares to jump will kill anyone. Martin's eyes were shining, and his complexion immediately became solemn, and he said solemnly, Raffle. The first is the artifact area, draw 10 artifacts. That's right, he draws a lottery directly on the highlight from the beginning, but he has no plan to leave the heartbeat game at the end. You must get an artifact, preferably the sharp and invincible star sword. Martin pressed the lottery button, praying in his heart. Soon, the rapidly changing image gradually stopped with the passage of time, and the pointer pointed to a peculiar creation. This is the leadership module. Martin shook his body and looked over with wide-eyed eyes. Dip. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 10-minute access to leadership module. Martin was a little disappointed at once, but he lifted his spirits up again. At the necessary moment, these 10 minutes are enough to directly subvert a crucial battle. The leadership module is said to be the energy channel of Tiantian. It is the treasure that all shape-shifting diamonds are chasing wildly. It is not only a symbol of supreme power, but also a top fire source. If the leadership module is directly implanted into the fire of a certain shapeshifting King Kong, the life level of this shapeshifting King Kong can immediately usher in an explosive leap, obtain all-around strength, and naturally have the power to rule other shapeshifting King Kong. Qualifications. Whoever can get the leadership module is equivalent to getting the Emperor's Jade Seal in the Queen's crown. It's a pity that it's not a complete leadership module. After all, there are only 10 minutes. Martin licked his lips unwillingly. Looking at the dimming images, his heart seemed to be dripping blood. Open the lottery for the tech tree zone, Martin said again. There are countless black technologies in Cybertron's technology tree, and there are not too many completely unreasonable technologies that break the laws of physics. Now that the science and technology tree area is opened, a lot of uncertainty is naturally eliminated. Lottery. Numerous images are spinning rapidly, and finally, the pointer stays on a huge amounts of device. Dip. Congratulations to the host for winning Land Bridge technology, so you can instantly move your army on a planet at will. Land bridge. Properly black technology. As long as you build a land bridge and set the coordinates in advance, even if thousands of troops walk in, they can be teleported to the coordinates in an instant. The strategic significance of this technology can be imagined, similar to Kamar Taj's teleportation magic, and its advantages in some aspects are even greater. At least with the land bridge technology, it establishes a monitoring and scanning mechanism for a planet. After that, everything only needs to be completed in the computer to realize the transmission. There is no need to be like the Kamar Taj magician, first to accurately conceive the location and environment in your mind before you can successfully draw a portal. Very well, with this thing, at least on Earth, I don't have to worry about being restricted. A big smile appeared on Martin's face. The land bridge technology is just the beginning. When the space bridge is established in the future, no corners in a single universe will be an obstacle, and the army can be mobilized to arrive instantly anytime, anywhere. He looked at the last regional lottery draw again, thought about it, and said, "Let's draw a regional lottery." The image flashes rapidly. This kind of all-region lottery draws everything in it. There are all kinds of holy relics, a lot of good technologies, a lot of shape-shifting diamonds, and even special buildings. Variety. In the end, the pointer stopped on a mighty armor. Dip. Congratulations to the host for his luck, and successfully extracted one of the top 10 artifacts, Supreme God Armor. Supreme God Armor. One of the 10 artifacts of Cybertron civilization. Unexpectedly, I really pulled out an artifact. Martin looked sluggish, looked down at his palm in disbelief, and took a breath. Is this traditional ritual of washing his hands in advance and then drawing a lottery a lucky bonus? This is an artifact. The entire Cybertronian civilization is so strong, but only 10 artifacts have been created. What I want most is undoubtedly the Star Sword, which can cut everything and defeat the invincible. With the Star Sword, I can kill even the gods, but think about it now. But now think about it, the Supreme Divine Armor is not bad too. The defense is invincible and the mobility is super strong. Although the lethality is relatively slightly insufficient, this set of God Armor is also terrifying. Putting on this suit, the gods below the multi-level universe can't hurt Martin a single hair. With a surprised look on his face, Martin directly dropped the Supreme God Armor out. Looking at this cool suit of armor lying quietly on the ground, Martin felt satisfied. Wearing this gadget is equivalent to immortality. Even if you really encounter a terrible enemy, don't you still have 10 minutes to use the leadership module? Enough to kill the enemy. Everything is developing rapidly towards the positive side, everything is on the right track and into the fast lane of development. Martin looked down in the tall buildings, and watched the countless shape-shifting King Kong starting crazy construction work. Steel buildings with different styles from the earth were piled up crazily, and these buildings were extremely tall and magnificent, especially prepared for the shape-shifting diamonds who are a few meters high at every turn. It seems that everything is getting better. When the base is built, I will immediately set up a breeding room to cultivate the orthodox shape-shifting King Kong. It will not be long before few people on this planet can stop me. Martin opened his arms, as if embracing a bright future. His expression was so energetic. Just when Martin took his army to build the Earth base, Asgard far away, on the supercontinent of Tiantian, a fierce conflict broke out between the god King Odin, who ruled the world tree, and his son. Thor, who has an unruly temperament, openly questioned Odin's behavior from the perspective of father and son. This is regarded as questioning and quarreling, but from the perspective of the king and the god, This is rebellion as an absolutely unforgivable and serious provocation from the lower god to the upper god. The dignity of the god king is not allowed to be defiled in any form, even if this person is his son. Father, I'm going to kill the Frost King soon. Why did I forcibly teleport me back suddenly? Stupid, you almost killed your friends and soldiers. That's how you fought on the battlefield. Your arrogance almost set off another great war in the 9 realms. The god Odin sat on the throne, raging out of anger, and the power of Odin, like a vast star, rolled frantically with the wrath of this top god king who didn't know he had lived for millions of years, almost to the point of breaking a star. The terrible coercion broke out. The entire Asgard people felt the anger of the god king. Odin is really too powerful. As the number 1 power in the 9 realms, level Godfather's top-level existence is even more powerful than ever to oppress the world tree. His glory is everywhere. He drew the sword that controlled the Rainbow Bridge and threw it in front of the goalkeeper Heldam, but the latter caught him silently. We can't hold back. Those ugly giants of Jotunheim will take away the glory that belongs to Asgard little by little. Thor is a burly figure, like an angry lion, young and vigorous. After the young heir noticed that the giants of Jotunheim had sneaked into Asgard, he furiously attacked and directly killed the giants of Jotunheim's nest, Jotunheim, but suffered an unprecedented setback. He was easily defeated by giants of Jotunheim Lof. Now he is more like a hammer god than Thor. He can't fully control the power of thunder, and he is not an opponent of level Godfather Lof at all. Fortunately, Odin was rescued in time. Thor didn't want to scream. Those dirty giants of Jotunheim must respect me, just like they respected you back then. I will use my fists and super powerful force to exchange precious dignity for Asgard like you back then. Odin didn't say a word, and looked down. Although he had been mentally prepared for a long time, he still showed disappointment that could not be concealed. A certain thought in his heart could no longer be suppressed. Such an heir, young and vigorous, brainless and irritable, lacks frustration and fear of the unknown. He will never be able to hand over the throne to Thor, at least not such a Thor. This kind of inheritance not only inherits a throne, but also inherits the power of Odin, he has accumulated for countless years. Asgard's racial characteristic is that the older he gets older, his divine power will become stronger and stronger, which in turn will cause huge amounts of load on the aging body. This is also the reason why Odin sleeps all year round. His body can no longer withstand the terrifying power of Odin for a long time. Sometimes, he really envied the other gods of the world tree, such as Zeus of the Olympus gods, and the Jade Emperor of the heavenly gods. None of them had such racial characteristics. Shut up, you vain, insatiable, cruel and cold-blooded child. Then you are an old foolish fool. Thor was so angry that he couldn't care about anything. Time stopped at this moment. Everyone was shocked by the offensive words, whether it was the guards on both sides, or Loki who had sinister thoughts in his heart, Odin, and Thor himself. Odin slowly closed his eyes, and after a while, a terrible voice came out. Yes, I am indeed an idiot. I actually think you were ready to be a king. I really should thank giants of Jotunheim interrupted your enthronement ceremony. Thor Odinson, your disobedience to the king's will, your arrogance and ignorance, almost brought disaster to the 9 realms. Odin picked up the gun of eternity, pointed straight forward, and opened Bifrost, which was enough to transport people and things to any corner of the universe. You don't deserve to have these people who love you. You don't deserve to have these symbols of glory. You are not worthy at all. Odin personally tore off the cloak and king ornaments from his son. I will now take back all your supernatural powers, in the name of the Odin Sen family, in the name of the father of God Odin, to expel you and exile to Midgard. From this moment, you will become immortal without any power and spend your peaceful life in Midgard. From this moment, you will have an ordinary new life on the earth as a mortal. From this moment, with your stupidity and ignorance, and with your cruelty and arrogance, leave here, leave Asgard. Bifrost opened abruptly, and the powerful time and space power shuttled through it. In an instant, Thor, who was shocked and unbelievable, was forcibly teleported away. In the dark and silent starry sky, colorful colors were drawn. Father. Loki was ecstatic, waiting for someone to rush out, but his face was shocked and terrified. With a calm and terrifying face, Odin picked up Mjolnir, who was regarded as a symbol of Thor, and used his powerful divine power as a guide to inscribe a spell on it. Anyone who can hold this hammer, and deserves it, will definitely have the power of Thor. After all, Odin threw Mjolnir at Bifrost. This sacred hammer containing powerful divine power and authority of the gods instantly disappeared along with its former owner. Earth, Kamartaj. Ancient One stands on the holy place, looking up at the starry sky, the slightly turning eyes, as if countless stars are brewing, as the Earth's Asgardian, the mighty level godfather magician. Ancient One is always monitoring everything from power beyond the Earth. Until, a majestic divine power suddenly descended on the Earth. Ancient One, according to your and my agreement, I will exile Thor to the Earth. Odin's majestic voice sounded.
Ancient One's face was peaceful. Without blinking his eyes, he said gently, "Are you not afraid that he will suffer such a blow and will never recover? Or do you really plan to pass the throne to that ambitious Loki?"
Ancient One, this is an internal matter of Asgard, and you are not qualified to intervene as an outsider. Odin's gaze condensed, and the terrifying divine power was like a violent tsunami, carrying a kind of star-killing power at the moment it was about to explode. But Ancient One just raised his hand and defeated this supernatural power with its own powerful magic, smoothing out a crisis of extinction. Level Sub-Godfather can break stars with one punch, not to mention Level Godfather, really have to be serious. Level Godfather is a horrible existence that can destroy a galaxy. I am the Supreme Magician of the Earth, not the Supreme Magician of Asgard. I definitely do not intend to participate in your internal affairs, but if you pass the throne to Loki, then the war between you and me is inevitable. At that time I have no choice but to slaughter Asgard myself. Ancient One has a peaceful face, as if everyone is smiling, giving people a sense of intimacy, but in the eyes of Odin at this moment, this Ancient One clearly has an unspeakable cruelty and ruthlessness. The Supreme Magician still holds the Time Gem, the Supreme Magician who snatches the power of darkness from Dormammu, the Lord of Darkness, to prolong life. Every moment, I don't know how many foreign Mephistas are being killed. If it is so peaceful, it will be a ghost. We are all level godfathers, and we know a little bit about each other. If you really want to tear your face regardless of the consequences, it is also a situation of killing 1,000 enemies and harming yourself 800. Even if it is as powerful as Odin, facing the Ancient One which has a lot of horror artifacts such as Time Gem, Eye of Agamotto, and the Book of Emperor Weishin, it is also be jealous. Ancient One is too strong, and there are a bunch of artifacts that are difficult to deal with. I believe in my heir, he is the real king. I only hope you don't interfere with his growth without authorization, otherwise I won't let you go. The divine power dissipated, and Odin was gone. Ancient One always maintained a peaceful smile, and at this moment, slowly took off his hood. I definitely won't intervene, but it will be different if someone else intervenes. Ancient One looked down, and the time gem stored in the Eye of Agamotto showed a green light, and time passed by. In countless futures, she saw a picture that shocked Odin. A colorful ray of light descended from a distant star to Mexico State. Only a few people noticed the alien, but they all kept silent. Those who can perceive Bifrost or at least the existence of level Sub-Godfather, if they can reach this level, they know more clearly what this colorful transmission mechanism means, and definitely won't talk too much. Ancient One walks on the holy place on the roof of the world. Supreme Magician, what do you plan to do with this guy and imprison him on the earth? Mordor asked respectfully. Ancient One shook his head, and said dumbly, Odin talked to me, this time it was purely for Thor to come to Earth to receive severe beatings and lessons. Beat? Mordu was stunned, with a confused look on his face. Modo, the Earth is a very special planet. When you stand in my position, you will see a lot of real worlds hidden under the surface. On this seemingly technologically backward low-level planet, there are many terrible guys lurking. Any carelessness will cause painful consequences. But Mordu was deeply confused. Ancient One didn't explain in depth. Some things, if you know it, you know, and you don't have to say it deliberately if you don't know. At least Mordu hasn't reached the corresponding level. The Earth is indeed very special. Two of the three major forces of multi-universe have successors on this small planet: the incomplete Phoenix Force of the Piano, and the incomplete Chaos Force of the Scarlet Witch. The three powers are the horrible and primitive power that allows the living body to touch the multiple-level universe. It is the power that even the oldest gods are obsessed with chasing. In addition, there are many special nodes on the Earth, such as the attention of the cosmic gods.
These ancient gods of the world tree were expelled by the anomalous and eternal tribes on Earth tens of thousands of years ago, and they began to overlook humans from a high level thousands of years ago. They were defeated by the fourth team of the celestial god group 1,000 years ago. Coupled with the efforts of the previous supreme magicians, this group of damn gods were expelled from the Earth. These guys. Mordo whispered mockingly, and there was a strong disgust and rejection. He is full of malice and hostility towards these major Protoss. In fact,
His attitude is not surprising. Anyone who understands the history of the Earth, it is hidden in the history that ordinary people know, a deeper level. And the real history, even longer or even tens of thousands of years ago, will be full of malice towards the major Protoss. The enmity between Kamar Taj and the major gods is too long and too long. Whenever there is a chance, one party will never recommend that the other party be completely killed. Motto, don't just focus on hatred. At least Odin has killed countless extraterrestrial Mephistas over the years. Otherwise, the Earth is not as stable as it is today. You must know that those Kree people have never given up their coveting for alien races. Ancient One smiled, knowing the obsession of his own disciple best. The reality is far more worthy of attention than the old hatred. New gods are rising on the Earth, and everything will usher in brand new changes. Following this trend may not have good results, but if you hinder this trend, the results will be very miserable. Ancient One dropped these words and left with her hands on her back. The time gem on her chest flashed with dazzling luster from time to time, and countless images flashed in front of Ancient One's eyes. Mordu can't see these. What if Thor is in danger? We have to take action to protect him. Mordor looked at Ancient One's back and axed loudly. Then be quiet and watch him die slowly. Ancient One's voice came slowly. We are just the Asgardians of the Earth. As long as the Earth does not go wrong, we never intervene. Occasionally, a lot of amazing guys die. It's not normal. Thor took a step forward. His stature was as strong as a bear, and he walked on the street, which was extremely eye-catching. Obviously, this god also enjoyed the gaze of these mortals very much. Thor aggressively walked into a fashionable pet shop. Treasurer, I want to buy the strongest horse. Lord Thor patted the table and said majestically. The boss looked at the blonde burly man with a deep confusion on his face. Sir? We have alpacas here, and we don't have the horse you want. At this moment, there was a loud horn outside, and Jane showed her head and shouted at him, Are you going to take the car? Thor walked out, looked at the bad transportation, a little disdainful, looked at Jane, and said arrogantly, You are very nice, woman, I admire you.
What? It is the honor of your life to get my praise. You can write this story into your human myth, and then pass it on to the next generation, just like your ancestors did thousands of years ago. Thor lifted his chin.
Jane shook her head, a little headache. There are already a group of weird mutants in super ability in this world. Recently, a monster that can create silicon-based life has appeared. Now even Norse mythology has come out. Jane suddenly felt a little tired. As an excellent physicist and a die-hard Scientology, Ms. Jien firmly believes that science can explain everything. But this one bite of mortal, claiming to be Thor's idiot, so Jane couldn't explain it at God, who can be overturned by an electric shock baton and anesthetic. When I get Mjolnir, you will understand, I saw my hammer on TV. Thor laughed, heroic, and didn't care about his slight offense to Jane. The two went all the way to the camp of S.H.I.E.L.D. Thor gets out of the car and rolls up his sleeves to forcibly enter the camp. Even if he has no magical powers now, he can sling the best agent only by virtue of his physical fitness. This is not an exaggeration. You must know the physical fitness of ordinary residents of Asgard is 3 times that of ordinary Earthlings. But before Thor could do it, he was stunned, because someone started faster than him, and behaved more arrogantly. Roar screamed directly with a bunch of rumbling robots.